Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. On Tuesday, the Navajo Nation swore in a new president, and we have this distinguished gentleman with us today, and it's President Buu Nygren, a 36-year-old man. Welcome to Native Bidaské, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you for hosting me. It is an exciting time this week, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming all this way to attend the inauguration. It was definitely highlighting. It was definitely full of energy, and people from all over the country, and some of you flew from across the waters to attend the inauguration. So I'm glad that you made your way out, and I'm happy that we're here talking.
Yes, and tell us a little bit, real briefly. I mean, you had to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you said something in your inaugural address that really resonated with me, and that was surrounding yourself with good people. Tell us about your beginnings. You came out of poverty, so.
Okay. Yes, it was definitely one of the things I don't take for granted is my upbringing, and that's what really humbles me, and that's what humbled my campaign when I made a run for Navajo Nation president. I think a lot of us know that it's 27,000 square miles, the size of West Virginia. It expands into 4 states, and at the same time, there's almost 400,000 people that I'm representing, and a lot of it is very diverse. A lot of rural communities, a lot of thousands of people without water, thousands of people without electricity, thousands of people with really dead spots with no access to broadband, and roads that just when it rains, when it washes out, some people are stuck at home for days and out. So again, those are the types of people that I truly want to represent and try to help. And having grown up in conditions where I grew up with no electricity, no running water, being on a bus for 2 hours just to get to school. And so those are some of the conditions I grew up with, having a mom that struggled with alcoholism, and then eventually it took her life. And then just lots of that kind of struggle that's really seen across Indian country. And I feel like as president of the Navajo Nation now, I'm going to make sure that's at the center of all the decisions that I make, is that how do we cover the basic necessities to be a strong nation? Because without those basic necessities, then it's harder for us to build on top of that. So over the next couple of years, my mission is going to be very simple. Let's bring water, let's bring roads, let's bring broadband, let's improve on our public safety, and at the same time, how do we create healthier communities? So that's what's going to be the guiding principle. And then, as you mentioned earlier, surrounding yourself with strong people. I campaigned on 3 things. I campaigned on competence, knowing what you need to know to help our people and our communities. So everyone on my staff, whether it's division directors that I just recently announced the day before inauguration, was making sure that they are very knowledgeable in their respective fields. Number 2 is compassion, because in order to work for government, you have to have a heart to serve, because if your heart is not in the right place, because working for government, it's not about you're not going to make a lot of money. You're going to work with bureaucracy. You're going to work with systems that are just going to set you up for failure. But if you have a heart to serve, your mindset and your positivity is going to get you through these tough scenarios. Number 3 is teamwork. Teamwork within everything on Navajo, and everything that I do for the Navajo Nation, and working within the 7,000 plus employees of the Navajo Nation government. It's going to take a lot of teamwork. It's going to be teamwork with the 24 Navajo Nation Council legislators as well, to make sure that we are all on the same path. The same path is, how can we create a more efficient and effective government that will serve the people that are in need? And at the same time, obviously, I'm very pro economy. I'm very pro how do we increase our small business sector. I'm very pro how do we empower our young and seasoned entrepreneurs so that they feel welcome. At the same time, how do we bring on additional large-scale businesses, manufacturing here on Navajo as well, that will generate hundreds of jobs. So all that in a little brief. So again, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that answer. My understanding is one of the first phone calls you made after being sworn in was to Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, and she's from the Laguna Pueblo, which is down the road for you guys in New Mexico. But tell us about that conversation. I understand you talked about roads, and you mentioned that in inaugural, and you just mentioned it now. Tell us about those roads. What needs to be done to fix the roads on Navajo?
So when it comes to roads, there's thousands of miles of dirt roads, and then there's hundreds of miles of paved road. One of the tasks that I've put before my team and my enterprise is that we need to come up with creative solutions to open up more gravel pits that gravel that's ready for paving highways, gravel that's ready to do chip seal types of dirt roads that are low traffic. So that's what I've tasked my team. But in order to really open up gravel pits, you need the blessings of the Secretary of Interior, the BLM, and at the same time, making sure that the Navajo Nation, their ducks are lined up. So that's one of the things I've tasked. I've actually had an intensive roads meeting this morning to make sure that I told my team, I said, you know what, before we meet with Secretary Holland, before we go before BLM, let's make sure our plans are in place and that it's going to just get her blessings so that we can open up a lot of these gravel pits, because the cost of roads here on Navajo, the more complicated ones, are about $3 to $3.5 million a mile to
Wow.
do that. So if we can internally come up with innovative ways to bring it down to $2 million a mile, that's only going to stretch the dollar a lot further. And I've also met with a few of other team members to where we want to make sure that we're also maintaining dirt roads that have, I don't know, anywhere between 10 to 50 cars that a day that travel on it, because that's a lot of the rural community roads. So you got roads that get 50 people that travel on it a day, you got 200 people, and then you got into the numbers where you're thinking thousands of times a day people travel on it, and those are the paved roads. So that's what I've tasked my people. The reason why roads is very essential to me, it's because we got to make it easier for fire, EMS, public safety to get out there, and to make sure that school bus routes are taken care of as well too, because our kids need to get to school, because a lot of the funding and everything that is involved in schools, it's children attending schools and safely getting there as well too. So and that's why roads have been a forefront, along with having grown up with a one vehicle in the whole family where we had to all share. And a lot of people, that's their biggest investment here on Navajo, is that they've taken out a loan and they've taken out a risk to have a vehicle. And if vehicles start to break down because of the washboard roads, because of the clay roads, or the unsafe roads causes them to slip off of the roads, that's not good. So let's at least take care of people's basic investments here on Navajo, which is a vehicle that takes them to get their health care, a vehicle that takes them into the larger communities to do their laundry and things like that. So again, that's why roads is number one on my agenda.
Yes, and I remember reporting on during the pandemic that some roads were literally impassable because of the weather. Weather is such a factor. Whether it's heavy snow or even heavy rains can wash some of those roads right away and make it impassable. Now, I understand, and he's a friend of mine, is a deputy assistant at Department of Transportation, Arlando Teller, who happens to be Navajo. Have you talked to him about this? Maybe he can help bring some money from transportation as well.
Yes, I definitely. I've had multiple discussions with Orlando.
All right.
He's a very good ally to Navajo, and I know that he's very knowledgeable. He was actually deputy director here for INDOT for a few years, so he's got firsthand knowledge of the struggles that we have. So one of the things that I've asked them and we're looking forward to is those partnerships to really give us more autonomy so that we can start building on our own roads and make it not as difficult for us to use our own dollars. Because right now, there's a lot of things and scenarios where certain dollars might have some different restrictions. If we're saving some money on this road project, we should be able to take some of that saving easily and put it into this other project where unforeseen conditions might have happened. So those are types of things that we're coming up with, creative ways that, because a lot of us understand that construction doesn't get cheaper every year. Construction gets more expensive every year. So it doesn't make sense for millions of dollars just to sit in the bank while the cost to construct continues to go up, because we're losing the amount of roads that we need to be paving or chip sealing or maintaining. So I look forward to working with Orlando.
Yeah, plus the construction should, bring in some labor. You mentioned that in your inaugural that 50% of the people on Navajo are ready to come to work. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to switch, and you were so complimentary. You complimented President Ness, former president, who navigated Navajo Nation during the pandemic, where 80,000 people were afflicted, almost 2,000 have died. Are you keeping in place like some of the mask requirements, or are there any shifts? Are you looking harder at that? I'm sure you are. Tell us what your plan is to continue safeguarding the Navajo Nation against COVID-19.
I think as president, since my announcement on April 4th, I was the first one to announce for Navajo Nation president. And that day, my statement's still the same, that we need to completely open 100%, because all surrounding communities around the Navajo Nation are 100% open. We're the only ones that are mandating this, and it's very difficult for normal Navajo people to go visit their local governments to get the services that they need or the attention that they need. So me as president, I want to make sure that the Navajo people have access to their government, because a lot of them need just basic services or basic help. And right now, everything is closed and shut down. It's very difficult for them to get those services. So as president, right now, I'm actually working on making sure that we do lift that mandate and make it optional. We're not saying no mask. It's going to be all optional. We just want to keep pace with the surrounding communities that have reopened over the past year or so. So
Yes.
I think that I think we've waited long enough, and it's about time we give an opportunity for our people to come back to work. And I've also asked management people to come back into the office and to make sure that they're working as well too, so that we can provide efficient, effective services to the people.
Great. And my understanding is Navajo Nation has one of the highest rates of those who've been vaccinated. So that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
President Nygren, since 1990, I went back through, since I've been home even, there's only been one person who's served 2 terms, and that is Dr. Joe Shirley. And he had asked you to be his running mate back in 2018. Tell me this. Are you a 1-termer, or are you shooting for 2 terms? Or is it too early to talk about?
It's way too early to talk about it. What
Okay.
I've told my team is that I do respect President Shirley. I know that during his administration, there's a reason why he was reelected. I think he was a very strong leader and stood strong for the Navajo people in the mid 2000s. And I think that just that type of leadership style, I think he is the only 1-term president. And I think the last time we had someone go back to back was Chairman McDonald back in the back in the 70s and early 80s. So it's very tough to be a 2-term president on the Navajo Nation. So it's going to be a challenge for myself, and I'm not worried about that. What I've told my team is we've got 48 months, and that's all we got. Let's assume I'm not going to win re-election, so let's work our tails off to serve the Navajo people, and that's all I care about. Every decision that we're going to make, it's going to be dependent on I'm out of here in 48 months, and let's not take any day for granted. So let's work hard. So that's the message I've told all my division directors and all my staff.
Well, this is going to be shown on Martin Luther King weekend, so to speak. Martin Luther King Day is on Monday. Tell us what your thoughts are. How does Dr. King's dream still resonate? And I listened to your inaugural speech. I can see some linkages there, but tell us the impression of Dr. King. Why does his legacy still live on?
I think when I think of Dr. King, very inspirational. Right? He stood for his people, his community, and the nation as a whole, because end of the day, he knew he was an American. And I know that as Navajo, I'm also an American, and that every American here on the Navajo Nation should have access to the same benefits and the same resources that any American has. A lot of Americans have water, power, broadband, electricity. Why can't we, as Navajo citizens and American citizens? And that's one of the things I want to strive for as Navajo people is, hey, let's not forget why I got the United States flag behind me and the Navajo Nation flag. We are very unique, and we should have access to the same benefits as any other community in the United States of America. And I think that's where I draw a lot of inspiration from him. He stood for what he believed in and what he felt like was needed some fairness to be for his people. So that's That's the only thing I'm asking for. And I think you remember the statement that I made on my inaugural address. I'm a president that's willing to go to jail just so that grandmas or grandpas can get water to their homes. And that's the type of leader is needed here on the Navajo Nation.
And I was sitting next to Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays, and she says she's going to hold you to that. No, I'm teasing you. So thank you so much, sir, for being on. And I plan on being back out on Navajo next week for the Road to Healing tour that's going to take place. So I'll hope to see you then. And to our viewers, thank you so much, Chi Miigwech, for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské. And we'll see you next week. Be safe.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chi Miigwech.